Look, I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit frustrated these days, and that's because I'm watching my city, London, the city I love, the city I spent the last 20 years in, really go down the tubes. And I'm seeing the lifeblood of this incredible city, the small and medium-sized enterprises, the SMEs they account for 99% of the business that's done here. I'm seeing them going bankrupt, them not being supported by the government, and it's really frustrating me. And so what I decided to do is today I want to go out and meet with one of them. It's actually a guy that owns some wine bars here in London, and I want to talk about what he's experiencing and what he thinks that we can do to get business back on track and get London back to work, because that's what this city needs. It's an incredible, cultural center, economic center, and yet we seem to be completely fumbling the ball on a regular basis. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. We've been lucky because our business, isn't based on having traffic flow and foot flow and people coming back to the city. But a lot of them are, and we need to find a way to get London back to work. So I'm heading off today to meet with James Dawson, and he owns a place called the Humble Grape. And I want to be having these conversations and just see that we can talk to these people out there and get some better ideas, because right now this city doesn't seem to know what the hell to do, and I'm tired of it, and I'm tired of watching all these people. I speak to black cab drivers every day. I speak to shop owners. I speak to people out there, and they are frustrated with the uncertainty. And so that's what I want to kind of shine a light on here. And I want to start having some conversations with people, maybe get some people in the studio, and not just about the economics, about policies and about what we can do to really, make this city great again. Because, I think it's really the best city in the world. And it's stumbled much more than other major cities have. And I'm frustrated, and I want to do something about it. So I'm heading off, go speak with James and see if he can walk me through what's going on here. Jumping into this taxi, I'm going to probably have a conversation with him is finding out what his business is like as well, because it's all related. So let's do this. Hey, how you doing? Yes, Brian. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Booyah. Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Okay, take care. There he is, the backbone of London, black cabbies. Love them. All right, so we're heading up into St. Bride's Passage, where Humble Grape is. This is the wine bar, and this is a fascinating area of London. There's a St. Bride's Cathedral over here. This is where Fleet Street is, where all originally I think the paper makers were, and then all of the newspapers. This wine bar used to get a lot of business from the city of London, which is the financial district. I think there's a lot of lawyers around here. I think there's investment banks right down here. But I think that's all gone down in a significant way because people are working from home and they're not being encouraged to come into the city, which means people like the Humble Grape and other people just can't do any business because there's not the footfall. I read that it was 42% of the income from businesses in London come from the workers that come to London, which is higher than most cities. So it's not like you can wait around for the tourists to come back. You got to have the workers back, or this is just never going to be an issue. So anyways, I'm looking forward to talk to James and just see what he has to say, what it's been like, what he's been struggling with, and what he thinks we can do to get London back to work. There it is. The Humble Grape. There he is. What's up, buddy? Well?
How's it going, man?
Good, man.
Looking smooth.
Man. Okay, it's Brian Rose, and I'm here at Humble Grape with James Dawson.
Hi.
The proprietor, CEO, creator of this, 5-location wine bar in London?
Yeah, we've got 5. We've got 2 neighbourhood sites, one in Battersea, one in Islington, and then 3 city sites. One St Paul's Fleet Street, one at Liverpool Street, and then we have the one in Canary Wharf as well.
Right, okay, so it's good. Different demographics, different boroughs.
Very different, very diverse. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, look, I've been a little frustrated watching the city I love, London. I've been watching it kind of disintegrate the last 4 or 5 months. I see empty shops. I see businesses struggling, including you and a lot of people out there. And I don't feel like our politicians are doing the right things. There's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of anybody that understands business. So I just wanted to come here and talk to you today and just get your thoughts on some of the big struggles you're having as a business, and what you think that we could do to change that, to get London back to work, to get people here spending and get this incredible cultural metropolis, back on its feet. So yeah, maybe just get your thoughts on the past few months, some struggles and challenges, and then your thoughts on what we can do different.
Yeah, so it's been a huge challenge. In end of March, we had to close all our businesses and send all our people home. Unprecedented. If you think you've got all these high fixed costs with rent and rates and energy bills and everything, and then you just have to shut down all your revenue from 100% down to zero, and then try and manage that. There have been some great incentives to help us and to kind of get through stuff over the last few months. But the big problem we're having is that we've got like a lot of fear, and people are like worried about coming into London. People are concerned about going back to work, and that's creating issues for all these businesses that support the big corporates that are in central London. Some of the neighbourhoods are kind of okay because people are there and they're still there, but the city, especially central London and St Paul's and the tourist areas of Soho and Covent Garden have been really badly hit.
Right, because the fear campaign, it almost went too far, got people so scared. And we thought in the beginning it was the right thing to do because we didn't know what this disease was going to be like. But now it's almost like people are still scared to come back in the city, to go out, to frequent these retail establishments. It's almost like you need another campaign or new leadership to get people back, but it's not that simple because you got to speak with the corporations as well, right?
Yeah. So I think the campaign of fear was very successful, and everyone's like nervous about coming back to work, and not everyone, but a lot of people are. And we need to have a campaign the other way that's based on facts and real data, like what is the real infection rate, what is the real death rate per infection rate, which is much, much lower than they originally expected. And we need to let people operate in a safe environment, but also make their own choices, decide whether they're comfortable or they feel safe to go out and they're comfortable with the risks. A lot of people, for example, that would cycle to work in central London, you'll probably find if you ran the numbers and looked at the data, you're 10 times more likely to die cycling to work and back than you are from COVID. So we just need to kind of reset that a little bit and let people kind of, protect the elderly, protect people who are vulnerable, but let other people who are not as impacted that, and especially the rest of London, just get back to work and get back into the previous frame of mind.
Yeah. Well, we're here at St. Bride's Passage, which is kind of Fleet Street area, which there's a lot of city firms around here, law firms, investment banks. One of your locations is Canary Wharf, same kind of thing. And there's very few people around here, very few workers. We need to get these essential people back to work, right? Same even in the West End. And so, because without them, all these businesses are going to go, right?
Yeah. So if you walk up and down Fleet Street now, you'll see, I was there this morning at 9:30, and there's hardly a coffee shop. Fleet Street used to be booming and bustling. There's very few places open, a couple of pubs. There's very, very little footfall, which is very different from what it was before, and it's kind of scary to see that. We really need to work very hard to get people feeling safe back into the office and back into supporting all these little businesses that have been looking after them, the sandwich shops, the bars, the restaurants, the dry cleaners, the guys who clean their shoes, like all that kind of stuff. Everyone's kind of hurting, right? And it's kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stat that I saw was 42% of the income in London comes from the workers of London, and a lot of them aren't here, and these businesses are dying. And something nobody talks about is the irreparable economic damage being done. We were talking earlier, every single day this goes on, businesses are going out of business forever, and they're never going to come back. And these are these big holes in the economy that are going to affect everybody. And when the business isn't there, then all the ancillary people they employ aren't there. And this is something that just doesn't seem to be very well thought out. And our leadership isn't saying, hey, let's get this city bustling again. It all seems to be the latest fearmonger. And I understand we need to trust the science and be safe, but also, the economic damage is really significant, and you're
Yeah.
feeling this too.
Yeah, we're feeling this. I mean, we used to be open here Monday to Friday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and now we open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday evening only.
Wow.
Our revenue is 80% less than it was pre-COVID. It's a big building and has a lot of staff. We're on 4 staff now. We were on 16 before, and sometimes we go up to 20 at Christmas time. We mustn't forget that one of the things that's really exciting and interesting about London and the UK is that huge amount of employment is by small businesses, between 0 and 50 employees. It's a huge chunk, and those businesses are not able to survive 6-12 months with like massively reduced cash flows. They are the engine of growth in the UK, and we need to find ways to help them and encourage people back to work, encourage people to be spending and to come back into central London again.
Yeah, what else can we do? Can we open up the streets a little bit and have some outdoor seating? Can we remove parking spaces? It's just things I've been brainstorming about.
Yeah.
Can we cut red tape when it comes to you with regulations on business? Like, are these potential things that can help you as a business?
Yeah, I mean, what I would love to see in the city in central London, there's a lot of dead space. There's a lot of streets that are constantly blocked with cars, and you could remove parking, you could close streets off, you could plant more trees, you could make more space available for outdoor seating with nice umbrellas, and just make it a lot more welcoming and warm, and make people actually want to come into the city instead of just coming here because they work here.
Yeah.
There's a lot we could do, reducing traffic congestion and all that kind of stuff, just really pedestrianising stuff and just making it a lot more appealing.
What about just from a regulation standpoint? I mean, are you getting a lot of red tape when you're trying to get things done quickly as a business that can help your business? Is it difficult to get things done in London?
I mean, one of the things that I've seen in other countries have done really well is they've allowed restaurants to have, parking spaces and more outside area, and that happened very quickly with very little red tape. And in central London, that was almost impossible. Even our neighbourhood sites, we couldn't really get extra outside space, and it was really clunky and tricky to get it done, and we got denied and rejected. And there's been a few streets in London that have been pedestrianised, but if you weren't on those streets, then it actually was bad for you, because if you were close to those streets and not in them, then you would lose even more business because it's drawing stuff away from you.
Yeah. Well, I know you were saying in France where you spent some time, they opened up these big city centers and just had this bustling amount of consumer activity. In New York City, you see so many streets that just shut down, and all of these restaurants, some of them had to do outdoor dining, so it was 2 birds with 1 stone. You get around any kind of dangers of transmission, and you get the pedestrians back. In London, you just don't see that. It feels like there's nobody just having the leadership of telling, hey, let's get everyone back, let's be pro this. It just seems to be stuck in regulation and stuck in, I don't know, patchwork. It just doesn't feel like anyone's really thinking about the long-term ramifications of business.
And we really have to go out of our way to change that, because London is and can be an amazing city, and it can be very attractive to people to come in from outside of the city and for tourists. But we really have to think of ways to do that and make it easier and better and nicer and really appealing. At the moment, there's just so much fear that it's not appealing, and you can't have the same old London city centre with all the fear and still expect people to come back.
Yeah.
So maybe something like extending Eat Out to help out, but just for the central London areas. Because if you're in a neighbourhood somewhere, everyone's working from home on Zoom anyway, so they can only go out there. So they're already going out there.
Yeah.
We need to target the areas that have been massively impacted.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important point because, for example, the furlough scheme, and it was probably a really smart move at the time to keep the confidence going. Just to keep it as a blanket scheme doesn't seem to make sense. You want to incentivize certain businesses that are going to get people back to central London that will knock onto other businesses. So incentivize them in ways that generate revenue and foot flow that benefits everyone, as opposed to just cutting certain furlough checks for all industries.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at industries that are being really badly affected by this, and you have to target them. And if your business has been mandated to shut, or if there's a regulation that gets passed that means that you're going to get a much lower client base or footfall, then they should target those industries and businesses, and they should support them. But just blanket supporting everyone means you're going to end up with less for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, look, we both used to work in the City of London, and it seems to me the big elephant in the room is all these international banks and consultancy firms that are just telling their workers, you got till March or June of next year to work from home.
Yeah.
It seems like a big mistake, and it seems like if there was real leadership here in the city, they could go speak with these firms and say, what's it going to take, to safely get 50% of your workers back? What's it going to take? Is there a tax incentive? Is there a way we can incentivize you as a company? What can we do to have these conversations? Because that's where you're talking about 20, 30, 40, 50,000 workers coming back. That's going to move the needle on a lot of your businesses around here.
Yeah.
And it's a big chunk of GDP for the city.
It is.
And then these people spend money, right?
They do.
So that's a potential idea.
That's a great idea, but I think it probably needs to go, but both on the side of incentivizing companies and also making people feel safer. And we need to stop the whole campaign of fear. That needs to stop, and we need to, as I said before, look at the risks, look at the data, and evaluate that honestly.
Yeah. No, I agree. What we need is a real scientific study and to compare these metrics to other metrics in an unemotional way, and then tell people what is the real risk. I mean, I spoke to someone the other day on London Real that said, if you look at the people under 50, there was more deaths commuting than there would have been from, say, COVID. And again, I'm not trying to downplay, that some people have died from this and the severity potentially of certain people with this disease. But if you look at it statistically, a lot of times it's more dangerous doing other things like riding a bike to work.
Yeah.
So, but we're making massive decisions that affect people's economic interests, which lead to economic health, mental health, physical health, and just not being talked about while this city slowly rots from the inside.
Yeah.
And it seems like people realize it months late. Oh yeah, we got to get London back to work. It's like, you and I have been talking about this for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it needs to happen. Final thoughts on just, if you look forward into, say, the next 6 months and you see your business back to 100%,
Yeah.
what are the things that need to happen to get there?
So we need to get some proper data out, as you said, and explain to people what the risks are, and once they realize and they evaluate those risks against everything else they do in their life, they'll realize that it's fine to come back to work if you're out of those high risk category kind of individuals. The problem we're going to have is that a lot of the washout from all shutting the economy down and the reductions in revenue and stuff hasn't washed through the financial system yet. I think January and February next year are going to be very tough. And then I'm hoping that we're going to get back to some form of pre-COVID revenue by September next year. Unless the economy is in really bad shape. But then all the stuff we've spoken about, like making the central London spaces a lot more attractive and appealing for people to come in and visit and explore, making people feel safer, incentivizing companies to get back to work, incentivizing employees to get back to work and be in the offices and support all the support structure and businesses around them that existed before. I mean, that all needs to happen, and we need a reverse campaign of fear that really goes into making people feel okay about kind of mixing and going out again.
Yeah.
Like something like the concept and the term social distancing. It also is psychologically quite negative, because it should be physical distancing. That should be the term, because now we're like making people fear about being social.
Right.
And then having the whole Eat Out to Help Out scheme in August was amazing, and then encouraging people to go back to restaurants, and now announcing that across the whole of the UK, despite the fact that infection rates are very different in different parts of the country, that just blanket we're going to just stop all of that. Groups of 6 and below is all we allow, and that just kills off another huge amount of business for all of these businesses.
And that's already hurt your business, the 6-person rule, because you had bookings and
we've
parties.
lost a ton of events that we had booked in for next week. We've already lost all our Christmas party business and all our corporate business for the end of the year because of corporate confidence and corporates not wanting to spend money, and like the whole 30-person maximum gathering rule. But now that it's 6 and below, it's just decimated even some of the small groups that we had going before the end of the year. We had two events booked at our Battersea site next week that have just been cancelled. And this is a big space that holds 180 people. Our private dining room seats 12. You can't use that. I mean, it's just, and the risks are so low for these people, but they're not allowed to make their own minds up. It just gets blanket rule.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's kind of been the story of this entire crisis, using like a blanket policy to cover the entire population, regardless of health, geography, local
Yeah.
situation, and then everybody kind of has to pay for it. And again, those costs are so hidden. You know, you
Yeah.
can't see that the economic damage happening that's going to be with us for years, maybe even longer. So yeah, some of these policies need to be questioned. Again, more education, and yeah, getting people to come out. I think also, and just come out, see these things work. Come out to a cultural event. You're okay. You can do it safely, and then slowly getting people out of that fear, you know, and back to work.
Yeah.
So.
Let's hope it happens soon.
I hope so. Again, this is really important. And look, James is one of many, many people who runs a small and medium-sized business here in London. It is 98 to 99% of the economy are these small businesses. And they're everywhere. And they're incredible people. They're entrepreneurial. They're people that are always coming up with ideas and innovating. And they employ a large percentage of the workers here. And if a small business shut down, then its employees don't have income. They're not spending. And it's this total effect. And unfortunately, a lot of our leadership have never run a business before. You know, they don't understand how an economy really works.
Yep.
And when business is good, it's good for everybody. And you can't write checks out of that. You can't tax and spend your way out of this. London has to get back to work, and it's going to be done by business owners that are doing a really good job. And like, you know, you have been working 24/7 to find any way to keep this business in shape, and you know, and you've managed to keep this going so far. But there's a lot of people that don't even have those skills that are falling by the wayside.
Yeah, it's been brutal. I mean, like psychologically as well, and keeping your team in the psychological frame of mind, you know, has been really hard. And the whole mental health impact of this crisis and putting fear into people and making them feel unsafe to go on the streets is going to have a negative impact for years to come.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're gonna have to address that mental health, and for our children as well that are growing up in this, and just like you said, for the workers and a lot of people, it's never gonna be the same. There's the separation, there's the depression, but there's also just the fear. And I agree, it comes down to sometimes language and leadership. Some of these things we're talking about don't necessarily require massive checks.
No.
They require some leadership and some people going out and saying, let's go do this, let's try this, let's find the numbers, find the facts, and then let's go get London back to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really most important. So,
Yeah.
James, thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Brian.
I appreciate it. And look, you know, I've been following what you've been doing here. I mean, and it's been hectic. And it's been really hectic for this gentleman here. I mean, 5 sites in all sorts of different, you know, economic, completely different locations, from Canary Wharf to, you know, to Clapham and Battersea. And just trying to stay on top of it, keeping your workers positive, keeping a business afloat, and this is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And we need to give these business people as many tools as possible, as much support as possible, from public policy, from red tape, from all of the different administrative things. And I don't think you're getting any of it. So you're here despite the government's efforts, and we want to make it the opposite. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Wishing you all the best. There he is. And look, if you're a business owner out there, I'd love to see your comments below, or if you're anybody, let me know what you think. What are your ideas? If you own a business, what are you struggling with? Tell me, because I'd like to have more of these conversations and see if maybe we can get somebody to listen and get some policies, because we both love this city.
And if we all work together, we can make something really positive and great, and we can make London great again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is a group effort. We all love this city. Let's show the world that we are number one again, and we know how to recover and make this city great again. So thank you, James.
Thank you.
And thank you all out there. More of these conversations coming. Let's figure this out. Let's get London back to work. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, bye.